And then my buddy who owned the device, he took it back to his studio.
Yeah.
And then he told me like a few days later, I don't remember, like, hey man, somebody wants to buy the beats you made. I'm like, what do you mean?
Was it on his stuff?
It was on his device.
That's hilarious.
And I was like,
imagine he's like, yeah, I made these beats. You want to buy them?
Yeah, and I hadn't ever really heard about it because I was just getting into music, so I didn't know what the process was.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh wow, you can make money.
What year is this, by the way? Like,
oh, was like 1832. It was a really long time ago, guys.
Yeah.
It was a long time ago.
So electricity was just invented.
It was about that time.
JJ, you want to come? Is there too much shadow from his hat? Do you want to come in and give us a clap? Alrighty. What is this called? Solafide podcast.
Solafide podcast, take one.
And this is going to be the only take of the night.
The only take.
As
long as JJ's still in there.
Welcome, guys. This is Sean Fenner. Thank you for joining the Solafide podcast. Sean, you can get on the mic if you want. It's okay.
There's no way that I sound like that. There's no way.
He has like
smooth.
it's like presences. There's no way I sound like that.
Yeah,
there's no way.
You very much need to be like in a movie.
There's no way. It's more smooth. Try this. There's no way.
There's no way.
There's no way.
Oh, that was your Sean voice?
There's no way.
Oh, this is my Sean voice. Hi guys, I'm Sean.
That's not me. That's not me at all.
It sounds just like you. Watch, I'll do it too. Hi guys, I'm Sean.
That's pretty close.
It's close, right?
That's what I sound like to you guys?
Yeah, it's fine. You don't forget to hit the switcher. It'll be good to have a post switching.
Oh, you want me to switch to
It's just whatever you want to do. But yeah, just don't be afraid is all I'm
see
saying.
what Johnny looks like.
Technical jargon. I don't know what that means.
I need to turn my headphones up a little.
Mine's pretty nice.
You're good right where you're at?
JJ, how are your headphones? Are they good?
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear.
Nice.
Yeah, Jay, you want to take some BTS footage for us?
Oh man, that'd be great.
We'd be great
I
K-pop
love
stars.
I love their music.
Yeah. All right, guys, welcome to the Solafide. What is it called
Podcast?
again?
The Solafide podcast.
Welcome to the Solafide podcast. I'm here with Just Johnny. I got to
Just
restart
Johnny.
that. It's been a while since I did this, so it's a little hard.
Oh no, this is great. Little nuances of this is gonna be me all night. It's messing up, and that's my life.
Welcome to the Solafide podcast. I'm here with Just Johnny. If you guys have not heard about Just Johnny, his music is phenomenal. He's an amazing producer, amazing engineer. He probably wouldn't like to say that himself because I'm the same way when it comes to engineering and stuff. But this guy is an awesome mix engineer, and he has produced and mixed and mastered a lot of music.
Thank you, man. I didn't know I was gonna get some praise coming up in here.
Yeah, I mean,
that's cool. That's nice, man.
Just a little bit because
Feeling the love.
I gotta humble you a little bit.
Yeah, it's pretty. He's setting me up. He's saying these nice things now because then.
Yeah, I build him up to tear him down.
Yeah, it's a good strategy.
But I'm like the most humble person I know.
Totally, man.
Yeah.
I read that in your book.
Yeah. It was in the what did they call that on the back of the book when you had like a
I don't know, man. I don't read many
letter
books.
to the reader, at least like in the intro. You could have that in the intro of the
That's great, man.
Yeah. But you have is it Love You for the Weekend? Is that the full title?
That's the full title for my very first released single as Just Johnny, Love You for the Weekend. It's not I Love You for the Weekend. It's just Love You for the Weekend.
What started that song? Like how well let's go to this. How do you begin your writing process, and even in music or lyrics?
I think it's different from song to song, but I'd say normally I do start with music first because coming like from a musician, like as a musician, I feel like music already has a vibe. It has it has feeling and emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And then whatever that music is saying to me, then it just draws the lyrics out. So that's my normal approach is like I'll come up with the music first, and then I can just always say something. Like there's always something I could say. Like I'm not extremely talkative all the time, but in terms of like writing stuff, it comes pretty quick.
I know it kind of flips between like producer to producer, but do you start with drums or melodies?
Depends on the song, but I'd say melodies
for the most part,
or just chords rather than melodies. So just like the chord progression, I think that's what draws more out of me, because I can come up with melodies on like various types of melodies on the same chord progression. And so the chord progression, and here's the thing is like, I could do a chord progression that may sound good, but if it doesn't feel like it's pulling something out of me at that moment, then I'll just drop it and move on to a next progression. So it may be something that's...
Do you have a lot of like throwaway tracks where you will start something and you're like, I'm not feeling this? Like,
yeah. Love You for the Weekend is one of those throwaway tracks.
Really?
I just threw it away and threw it out there.
Threw it out.
I was like, this sucks.
Yeah, but
let me put it out there.
The release trash can.
You know what? I have had a ton of throwaway tracks, but for this project as Just Johnny, I think I've used almost everything that I've come up with, and it's been just from one track to the next to the next. It's fun. If it's fun for me, then I'm gonna keep it.
Is it almost like trusting your gut and your instinct on like, you know what, I do feel this, or I like, besides it just being good music, is it also like, because I feel like anytime I've ever worked on something, I can get a little bit in my head. And that voice will be like, no, this isn't as good as it could be, or this isn't like, you know, and I'll talk myself out of doing even like a video or something sometimes, and it'll not come out the way I want it to, but people will tell me it's dope, or like they actually liked it.
And I think that's mostly everybody's, like the inner critic, like you'll just destroy yourself. And it may be good. Like my advice to most people is like, just put something out there. So I take my own advice. Like, I know it's not the best track. I know it's not perfect. I know I can mix it better. I could spend all kinds of time, but I'm like, it's at a good spot where I feel confident about it. Right. And I like it. And with this project in particular, it's just about, I'm actually being more personal on these songs. And depends on the track. Like there's some that's like, there's not much that I'm saying. It's just like a fun song. And so I'll trust that, because it's like, okay, that's real for me right now, so I'm gonna say it and I'm gonna put it out there. And I'm not too concerned about like the quality. Like I'm confident that it's gonna be a good quality, but I'm not like trying to make it the best ever. Yeah. Like there's so much good content out there.
Yeah, it's almost to a point where you just want to put it out so people can hear it. It's like you make it as best you can with the time you have, and you don't want to sit on it too long to where it never goes out.
For sure. And I get ideas often, like, so if I just stay there, then
you were telling us before the podcast that you were like writing a song in the shower.
Yeah, I was about to hop into the shower, and then this melody just popped into my head, and it wasn't something like, oh, this is so and so's track or something. Right. It was just, and I was like, I pretty much hear voices in my head. Is what it is. But I essentially kind of started humming something, and I was like, oh, let me record it real quick. So I got my phone, recorded it, and I just started writing. So like in the shower, I was just like coming up with lyrics and kind of going through like a few different ideas. And then so I wrote, so it's not released yet. It's not like laid down besides like on voice memos, but it's like the verse, the hook, and like another like little section.
I know, like a lot of musicians use voice. Are you using voice memos a lot for your music? Like
voice memos all the time. Is this professional, guys?
Put it up. You could put the bottom of it up to.
Is this I'm getting a text message, a very important one.
Yeah.
Go ahead and ask me a question real quick so I could.
Yeah. Let's start from the beginning then. What brought you to music to begin with? Like, what interested you into even doing your own music?
That's a really good question. So I actually, growing up, I didn't really care. Like, we heard music all the time. My dad would put music as we're driving places or whatever. And he was really into like just a bunch. He has pretty good taste in music. But I wasn't ever really like, oh, I have a favorite artist or anything like that. Even as a teenager, I didn't really care. And then I think even my older brother started playing guitar or learning the bass first. And at that point, we were like, my brothers, we were just into football, and we were just like, come on, man, like, don't go practice, just let's play football or whatever. And so whatever, I just grew up like not really caring for music like that. And then the moment that it turned for me was, and I tell this, like, people that know me probably heard the story like a bunch of times, but one of my brother's friends left a bass guitar at our house, and we had just bought my younger brother a drum set for Christmas because he was into
Wait, who was
drumming.
playing the bass before? Your older brother or younger brother?
My older brother.
Oh, so you guys all played music.
Yeah.
That's
my older
wow.
brother played bass. That's what he started with, and then he got into guitar a little bit. And then my younger brother started, and he played the congas, moved down to the drums. So I was the last one to get into music. And like all of us were at a different like interest level into it, but I knew from the first moment that I held the bass guitar not the correct way. It was literally like flat on my lap, thumb up here, and I was just like plucking. I was like,
you're playing it like a slide, those slide
almost
guitars.
right. It was kind of like that. So it's crazy because from that moment, I remember I was like, this just feels right.
Yeah.
And I had no musical experience. Like, I was not playing anything. I didn't have a favorite artist or nothing like that. And then I just got into it. So that was the moment. I think that was a question.
That's like the spark, right? Like when you go to like, oh, I'm going to actually start doing this and trying to learn and figure out. Like for me, it was like because I started mixing before I ever tried to do anything else. And it was, how did they make that sound like that? And so I would even find like projects that you could download online into like Pro Tools and stuff. And I would just look at them like, it would even show me like, it would show me the plugins, but I wouldn't be able to open them because I didn't own them. But you could at least see how they mixed it, like how it's panned, how. Yeah. And so for me, that was like, I wanted to learn more technical side. When my brother, being in here, he wanted to start playing music, and so he started playing guitar, keys, and like I was just like, oh, I want to figure out how to record all that, you know. So that's where I started. And
that's pretty crazy.
The music side.
I don't think I ever knew that.
Yeah.
I mean, I just met you.
Yeah.
That's crazy though. Yeah, because I mean, you definitely have like the technical ability in that approach, which is crazy good.
Yeah, especially it helps when it comes to like videos and stuff, because it's like, oh, I know how to EQ, compress a voice pretty well, and then throw a limiter on everything to make it sound like nice and beefy and crunchy. Yeah. Not too distorted or anything like that.
Talking about like a burrito or tacos, there's beefy and crunchy. I think that's,
you just throw like the mix in, the compressor in, and roll it up into a nice limited burrito.
Hungry, guys. I was eating a burrito here earlier, but Sean told me that it was not professional to be eating.
Yeah.
It's messed up, Sean.
Yeah, and at that it was Chipotle, so you shouldn't be eating Chipotle.
Chipotle, yeah.
Chipotle.
Yeah, man. That's music is, it's crazy. So it runs in my family, like in our blood, really, because my dad also played drums, and he wasn't like.
Did he start out on a kit, or did he start out on like?
So as an adult, he just like jumped on the drums. Like it wasn't, and he didn't play for long, or it wasn't
already
like
had
bands.
Kids. Like he already had you guys started?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. We were, I think we must have been teenagers when he started. So anyway, all that to say, and he sang too, which is crazy because he had this karaoke machine, and he would always like sing and practice and stuff. So it was there. We were around it, but not like deep into it. Oh, here's another crazy thing. So he's a mechanic, an auto mechanic. Been doing it since he was like 11 years old, so like super good. And then at one point when he was interested in music as an adult, he traded like he did work like on a car for somebody who had a studio and traded for studio time to record some songs. So he actually recorded a few songs
before you ever did,
way before. And this was like on cassette tape. You know, for those who know what that is.
It's probably like a multi-track recording cassette tape.
Yeah,
type
the
of
dude
thing.
had like an actual
legit,
studio.
Yeah. I love those type of studios too.
Yeah, I mean, so it's crazy to think that he did all that. Like he was in the studio before I was ever in the studio, and so it's pretty intense. The like how it runs through our because like when it clicked for me, it clicked, and I just went.
Yeah, I think ours stems from our grandfather, right? Yeah, because he played. I mean, at least I knew he had like a 8-string guitar at his house, and he would break it out every now and then. I didn't know this until like I was a teenager, and he would start playing, and you know he would be jamming like the mariachi type of music and stuff.
Real?
Yeah, really cool. It's like hear him
That's crazy.
just bust that out and start playing and singing.
Yeah.
But wanted to ask from like the roots of like your music. So then you go from picking up a bass and then you move to starting a band with like a couple friends, or
no. So here's the quick succession of things was I bought the bass guitar. So So that first day I held the bass guitar, kind of messed with it. The next day I was already working at this point. I went to buy a bass guitar and a small amp. Like I invested right away. I was like, I'm just gonna go for it and do it.
Yeah, it excited you. You wanted to like invest into it. Yeah.
So I got that. Then did that for a few weeks, and I was like, I want to get a guitar now. So then I think I bought an acoustic guitar. It's actually the acoustic guitar that we had here. JJ was playing it, and he was like strumming it. So I've had that guitar for forever, and got the acoustic, and then an electric. And then I bought like this little digital
Is
recorder.
it harder to go from like bass to electric, you think? Or do you feel like it's, I don't know, like cuz like the thicker strings and like the style of playing and stuff, you know what I mean?
Music was all new to me, so I didn't really think like this should be easier or should be more difficult. I just wanted to make music. I just wanted to like, and it was really like garbage music, of course. When you first start out, you're like just making all kinds of garbage, but it was great. It's cool to see like
the progression in it.
Yeah. So literally the very first few songs that I ever made, I have the recordings. Like the first week we were recording on my dad's karaoke machine. My brother had the drum set in the garage, little bass amp, and we just hit record. So I literally still have those, and it's crazy that like if anybody that does music, if like you make any sort of music, like you know the like fulfillment that you get, right? Like when you're working on any video projects, like there's something that's valuable to you in doing that it's hard for others to understand if they're not in it. Like there's just this satisfaction that you get from beginning something, completing it, like seeing it through
your
the process.
finished, like your actual finished product too.
Yeah, and the journey too, like figuring out chord progressions or something. You're like, oh, that, and then you find another chord that works better. Like, oh man, that was great. And it's like this small little victory that it might be hard for some to understand, but I think everybody experiences something similar to that, just in different things. Like not everyone's a musician, of course, and but I think that's kind of an experience that translates well into
I'm sure, like, because my brother's an engineer, I'm sure like engineers and architects and stuff like that, like when they see their building or their projects or whatever finally go into like in the finished product, they're like, oh, I did this started out in math. You know what I mean? Like, which is pretty crazy to think about. I'm pretty sure like a lot of people, that translates to a lot of people, especially when it comes to like music and visuals and like overall creatives. Like they can understand that aspect of it. Yeah. So I want to get to the band though. Like, how did the band even in the beginning?
So my younger brother and I, we were playing, he played the drums, I played the bass, and we just did that for a bit, like drums and bass, and we were trying to find like a guitar player. That never happened. We had a dude come play in the garage once, we recorded it, and that was it. Like he never came back. He quit on us. But then this is funny because I don't remember, and I'm going to have to ask my buddy, shout out to Christian Napel, check it out. Light the Way. This is I'm gonna turn around real quick so you guys can see the back. Sacktown Punk. If you guys can see that. Anyway, really cool shirt. So Christian was the drummer of this first band that I was ever in. It was called Hold Down. Oh, and my buddy Chase also recently. It's just crazy. Like I recently reconnected with these dudes like within a month, I think, maybe something like that. Anyway, so I can't remember, and I'm gonna ask because I don't know how I joined. I think
you just showed up one day to you walking by a garage.
I don't even know, man. It's crazy. Like I don't know if someone told me about them or what, or if I met, dude, I don't remember. But I just remember going to Christian's house, and we were gonna for the first practice. I didn't even have a bass amp. I had my little small bass amp, but in a band, like you can't rock this little thing where, you know, you got a live drum set, you have
it's
guitars.
A bass too. You can't rock a little amp if you have a bass because you need to fill it.
That's cool for like learning and just kind of jamming like in your room or something.
Was it a pocket bass?
Nah.
Or like, you know, like the pocket amps that you could attach to you?
Yeah, it was a small little amp, but I think I ended up using like, or maybe I borrowed one. So basically I didn't have gear besides the bass guitar for that band. I just remember going in there to the practice, to the room where we were practicing, and I hadn't played live ever. Oh no, I had played live with my brother, right? But not in a band
or even with other people, because that's
right. Like just learning with my brother. But
when you go to jam sessions, I'm sure like even playing with different musicians, you learn how to vibe and balance with them, because it's like, oh, they're trying to lead in these pockets, you know, and I need to step back and make sure I'm just filling this area,
right? And writing new material based on that type of band. And I think and
everybody has different influence in music too.
Right.
Like this person may have grew up in hip hop and now he's doing punk, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. So everybody has a different approach, and that's the cool thing about being in bands versus being solo, is that with a band you mesh all that. I mean, there's different difficulties too with bands because you have different people, and it's just like you got to make things work. But I remember just joining the band and just practicing a lot, and it was exciting to like get a first show or be like, oh, we're gonna go perform somewhere. That was a cool experience
because it becomes more legit. You're like, this went from a garage to a venue.
Exactly. Yeah, all these times practicing, but it was fun. I mean, I just enjoy the journey, like the practices and doing all that, like all the groundwork to actually get to a live performance.
And your dad and all that, like everybody was pretty cool with that in the beginning too.
Oh man, my dad was super supportive, because like we were in the garage just blasting the bass at that point, and then the drums, and then I ended up getting the guitar and stuff, being super loud, and it was bad, you know. Except my younger brother though, he actually was a really good drummer. Like even when he first started, he was just like a phenom pretty much. But just loud music and just my dad was super supportive. Like they didn't care. I mean, like we didn't play like super late in the day, but we'd be there rocking for hours. And so that, I think that's a big part in us continuing in music, is having that additional support to just go for it, even if like it wasn't amazing, you know.
Yeah, and then you move into producing for other people and recording for other people.
From Hold Down, then I joined a different band with my buddy Keith, and his band was called Breakthrough Silence. So they were already established. It was Keith on bass and singing, and then we had so it was a 3-piece, I think. It was a 3-piece band. I went to watch them live.
Yeah.
And it was fun. I was like, bro, these guys are it was a cool energy. So this was after Hold Down, and then Keith asked me to join the band and play bass. I was like, oh man, that'd be cool. And then I went to play bass for them. Same thing. It was just like a cool, like what you were talking about, being in a band and different like chemistry and stuff, different group of guys. And we just went to Keith's house, and his whole room was our rehearsal studio pretty much. And it was super fun, man. I mean, like really fun. Played different shows with them, and it was just good energy. And that was more, the style was probably like post-punk type, a little emo-ish, like getting into emo type stuff.
Did you have the look too?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
I saw a picture of you with dyed hair or something.
Yeah, at that point I don't think I had dyed it yet, like any crazy colors. But it was funny because I just worked like office jobs, and then while I was in band, so I had to like find a
suit and tie and then punk rock clothing.
Not so much a suit and tie, but definitely,
Yeah.
you know, you got to look a certain way. And then, so it's funny. I just remember going to like rehearsals, like in office attire. It was pretty funny. Whatever office attire was at that time. But, so yeah, joined Breakthrough Silence after that. And then, I remember having a digital recorder that I was recording my stuff on. But I didn't get into like music production for others. I was just like, it was still rock based. It was more recording. I wasn't making instrumentals. After them, I remember. So I think it was the singer Joe from Hold Down. I don't remember the time period after Breakthrough Silence that he told me about this band Stars Are Falling that they were also a 3-piece band, and they were looking for a singer, and they were gonna hold tryouts pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's cool because my buddy Joe he told me about it, and I was like, oh, like I'll check him. And so it was like a melodic metal or melodic hardcore band, and so they were looking for a screamer. And this whole time I had been first band I was playing bass, second band I was playing bass. But during this whole time, I was really into like one of my biggest influences in music at that time, or at least in when I first started, was Zao. So Zao was like a hardcore band, super super great. I still like them. Great shows. I've been to some of them, and so I was really into them, and so my vocals I wanted to emulate that. So it's just like a higher type of, like, my voice is high anyways. Like I don't have like a ton of bass. And so that was like the style that I had been recording, just making up songs like on my little recorder, just my own stuff. And so when I tried out for the band, that was my voice. That was my screaming voice.
Yeah.
And I remember just going, and I don't know if I was the first one. I don't remember like if they had other people come in, but I just remember it felt like we locked in and we synced, and it was just like, oh man, the energy was crazy. Like, because these dudes it was a different style of music, right? Like each band was different. I think the first was like more new metal than the post-punk emo. And this one was hardcore, like some melody and stuff. But the energy was crazy. And right away I was like, man, I want to like be in this band. And so it just worked out right away. I remember them telling me that it was just like, yeah, man, like we really like, you know, we're like in sync or whatever. So we were a boy band. But anyway, yeah, it was really cool, man. And so all my first experiences with music were rock. That's like my whole foundation. I didn't grow up listening to hip hop. Like I knew of some artists and stuff, but like I said, I wasn't a fan of anyone.
It's kind of crazy because then you're doing a lot of hip hop.
Yeah. Which I think it's fun. That's why it became fun for me to like
different
get into production, because it was like, this is a whole different world that I had not like messed with at all.
Yeah.
So it was all like the live.
Everything before production was like analog and like acousticy, or
it's just like there's something you plug in and it's loud and that's it.
Yeah.
It's energy. And then going to like something digital and making stuff there.
Mm-hmm.
It's here's a bit of, it's something that I actually forgot about kind of. But a buddy of mine, Josh, he had a band. They were like an alternative band, and he had this little like Yamaha Roland little beat machine. Mm-hmm. And he let me borrow.
I know those. Those are freaking awesome.
Yeah, they're like they have a few keys where.
Do they have an arpeggiator on it? Like
I'm sure it did.
Yeah.
Like a lot of them do and did, but just this little analog gear, and you just so you can make a beat on it. Mm-hmm. And I remember making drums. It wasn't like hip hop, but it was more like industrial. I was into like a few bands like that.
Yeah, Yeah, people. I seen on Instagram like people in production and stuff. They still break those out to like to have like little loops or something during the middle of like their. Yeah,
that's cool. I mean, because they are. I mean, it's just a different sound source. Yeah. But like in this little thing, it's
like its own instrument.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, those are super fun, and that's what I found about it. I was like, you know, I've been playing with bands and live instruments, and then I was like, oh, let me mix this. So I made a bunch of songs in a certain vein. Like whenever I would write stuff, I would think of a certain band name, even though I didn't have a band for it, but I like would write. So I can't remember what that. Oh, so that one, it was more digital. So I made a few songs in that vein, made a few beats on this little thing that my buddy let me borrow. And that was, I think, my first experience with leaning me into like production with beats because of that. But when I was with the band Stars Are Falling, we had a rehearsal studio, or we practiced at a rehearsal studio with other bands, and like at a warehouse type thing. And one of our second guitar player that joined, he had a studio at his house, like out in Vacaville or something. I don't remember, but it was really cool, just a studio out there. And then he had a different drum machine, and he brought it to the practice studio. And I was messing around, like just hitting buttons and stuff. And he's like, "Oh man, just you can borrow it and take it home or whatever." I was like, "Oh cool." I took it home, and then, oh man, the light's dim. I think that's a sign. I think we're getting kicked out. I'm kidding. Motion sensors. So,
yeah, I got to put those to where they're not on auto. I think there's a way to do that.
Yeah, or we could just have JJ walk around over there. Let's see. Oh, there it is. Yeah, man. So, he let me borrow this device. I took it home. And I just started making beats. Like I didn't know, like I knew because my brother was a drummer, I knew what a beat was supposed to be. I knew where the snare was supposed to be, where the kick should have been. But now coming up with a song with different samples, right? Like it's a different kick. Now you have like different sound choices. And I was like composing, and I was like, oh, and then coming up with a little melody. So everything that I had learned with rock, it's the same concept. You're just translating it into different sounds. A sound source. So I made a few instrumentals. Like I didn't know what it was. I just knew it was music. So it wasn't like I was really like, I'm doing this for a certain purpose. I really am that way in general. I just go with the flow and stuff just happens.
Yeah.
And that's how it was with that. I just made those, took it back to the rehearsal studio. And then one day, it was funny because we had our whole PA system, and I plugged it in and played the beats, and we were laughing because it's like, we're this rock band, we're this metal band, and then I'm just playing these beats, and it was just hilarious. And then some dudes walked by, and they were like kind of like looking inside, and they were like, "Is that coming from here, from this studio?" Or we're like, "Yeah, it's whatever." Anyway, so that was kind of like one of the first experiences where I had someone hear my music that I had made. That was not rock.
It got them to pause and stop and be like, "Oh, what's that?"
And especially tripped out because it was like these rock dudes, and this music is coming from here. And then a buddy who owned the device, he took it back to his studio.
Yeah.
And then he told me like a few days later, I don't remember, like, "Hey man, somebody wants to buy the beats you made." I'm like, "What do you mean?"
Was it on his stuff?
It was on his device.
That's hilarious.
And I was like,
imagine he's like, "Yeah, I made these beats. You want to buy them?"
Yeah, and I hadn't ever really heard about it because I was just getting into music, so I didn't know what the process was.
Yeah.
And then I was like, "Oh wow, you can make money."
What year is this, by the way? Like,
oh, was like 1832. It was a really long time ago, guys.
Yeah,
it was a long time ago.
The electricity was just invented.
It was about that time. But it was crazy to me that someone was, and I that's the way the music industry works, right? Like people pay you for your sound or whatever.
Yeah.
But I was just so new at everything because I just jumped into everything all at once, right? Bass guitar, a few weeks later, guitars, and then recorders, and I just loved music, so I didn't think money.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking experience. Like this is great. This is fun. This is like. So
which is how
energy.
How music should be created. Like, I mean, some of the best product comes out of just a feeling, you know what I mean? Like, instead of like thinking about how can I sell this or how can I turn a profit or
yeah. And I think that's even my approach now with Just Johnnie, just Johnnie. with the music, I just want to make music.
Mhm.
I'm not really trying. I don't have a goal like I'm trying to get X. I'm trying to get here or there. I think there's like little goals that you set like along the way as you're going, but my overall goal is just to have fun with it.
Mhm.
And as long as I'm having fun with it, I'm gonna keep doing it pretty much.
Yep.
And yeah, that's how it was. And
And you had a pause in music too, right? Like
dude, I only had a pause in music like 2018, 19, and 20. That's the only time. From when I first started, I never stopped. I just kept going, writing, making music.
He said I just met him yesterday or whatever, but
yeah,
I've known him for a long time. Yeah. No, and I've always seen you like continuously make stuff. That's why I'm like, it was shocking to see a pause or not see you like popping up in places or anything. And then like randomly you met up with one of my buddies.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. And then I was like, hey, come to church. And then it's like, oh, mission's back over here. And then like it all got connected again.
Which is definitely crazy for many reasons, but I pretty much had fallen off the grid. Like I was gone. Like nobody knew where I was.
He was in the woods.
I was just in the woods. Like under along with the beavers.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So that break in music, that was a big deal because music is such a part of me, and I had almost forgot about that for those few years. Like, I mean, I was busy with like just life in general, but at that point, I was just like not even enjoying it.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't enjoying creating. I wasn't enjoying. And I
Were you listening a lot
to other music? You mean?
Yeah.
No, I've always listened to music. When I started, once I got into it, then I was like, oh, I like this band, I like this artist.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely had my preferences and stuff like that. But I'm sure I did, but not. That was never a driver for me, like in any way. Like I enjoy music, but it's never like I'm making it because of that. So it was a huge deal for me to like stop making music,
right?
And then to come back into it the way that it happened, I think was very key and just so enlightening because it's bigger than myself. You know what I mean? Like it's really a part of who I am.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you forget who you are, or I forgot who I was really, because to not do what you are in a sense created to do, you know what I mean? Like what drives you. Like you know me and you know how like I'm always doing something like creatively. Now think about it for
you know me.
Yeah, exactly. We're always doing something. Yeah. Now think about just stopping completely, not doing anything. You know what I mean? Like it's a big deal. Mm-hmm. So to be back in it, man, it's just
I've had a lot of thoughts of like maybe I should just sell everything.
Really?
Yeah.
I never got to that point. Like even though I wasn't feeling it, I've never, like I was saying, JJ was playing my guitar earlier, the first one that I bought like when I first started. So I just keep everything because I'm like,
I've had the thoughts, but I've never pulled the trigger. You know what I mean? Like I've just gotten in my head and stuff, and where I'm like, maybe I should sell my computer and I just stop doing videos or something. Dang. But this was like a couple years ago.
That would have been crazy. I mean, you're so good at this stuff. I'm like, there's no way. I mean, it's So to think that you can stop doing, I think you could kind of like change up how you do things or your involvement in it. Or sometimes you do more, sometimes you do less, depending on what life is like at that time. But to completely stop,
it's like just hitting the brakes. That's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
I've known some really talented singers, musicians, and this was while I was still like producing and stuff.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Oh yeah, I don't think I'm gonna do this anymore." I'm like, "What?" Like
I've known a lot of those same people too.
Crazy. Yeah. Like you have this talent. I'm like, you gotta use it. But then I now know the flip side of that and how it feels when you're like, you don't feel like you're enjoying it or for whatever reason.
So you went from punk rock to, did you go straight to production or did you go straight to doing like your own stuff?
So,
you know what I mean? Like, did you go from punk rock to your own stuff or did you go to production or?
I went, so after the Stars Falling, that band, I got into production mainly for one buddy who wanted me to make something.
Yeah.
He was a friend, so he already knew that I was in music, in bands. Like he came out and watched some shows and stuff. And then when he found out that I got into production, he's like, "Oh man, I want to do this." It was actually like a reggaeton track. And
I was gonna ask, how did you get there? Like, you know what I mean?
That's how I got there, because this dude, David, he showed me what reggaeton was. Like I didn't even know about it.
And that was when it was starting to get a buzz, like in the mainstream.
Like in the States anyway.
Yeah.
Because in other countries, like it was already a thing.
Yeah. But in at least the US, it was like, oh, you started hearing it out of people's radios and stuff. Yeah.
It was during the time where it was like really just popping.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah, man, I want you to make me a reggaeton track." I was like, "What is that?" And like I had to figure out what that was. So I jumped from all this rock stuff quickly into just like hip hop, and then right away into like reggaeton. And I was like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
Learn like the basics of it, you know,
the drums.
Just
yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, that sounds cool though." And he showed me a few records pretty much. So the for sure, and everybody knows who this is, Daddy Yankee, right?
Yeah.
He showed me one of his records, and
I gotta say, you're really good at doing reggaeton, like that style of music. I remember hearing it, I'm like, dude, it was like Christian music too. I'm like, I've never heard anything like this.
Yeah, I think that I've done stuff when it was in time. You know, like I was ahead of it a little bit. You know what I mean? Like there was no. I've always felt this way with my music in general. Maybe not when I first started, because there was definitely like.
I mean, I felt that way with your music. Like
it was just
it's a little like oh, this is way different than what I'm hearing right now.
So it's familiar, but it's unique, and I'm not saying that to like, I'm not like bragging or anything. I'm just like, it's just what my version of my reality of that style of music, right? So there's a little bit of you know, something familiar to what folks might know of, but then I have my own take on it.
Yeah.
And so with reggaeton and stuff like that too, I definitely like, I absorbed what it was. And I feel like when music is in your blood, like it's like a language that you understand.
Yeah.
Like if all of a sudden someone was speaking a certain language that I had never heard, and it was just like, I understand what you're saying. And that's how it feels, like, oh, I get that. Like, so when I heard it and I heard the beat, I was like, the energy though that I felt on that record, which was I think Barrio Fino was the name of it. And I was just like, when it first starts off, just the trumpets or the horns in that instrumental on the opening track, I was like, this energy is insane. And so that's what drew me in. And I was like, oh, I want to make something like that. And I just kind of just jumped in. So for that buddy, he wanted me to make a track for him. So I started making a bunch of them. Like, it wasn't great. It for sure wasn't, you know, but that's what got me into that.
Well, then, so you went from punk rock to hip hop to reggaeton. Every time you're kind of jumping into like different genres or different sounds, it's kind of allowing you to grow too as a musician or as a producer or as a artist.
Yeah, in different in many ways, because of the different instrumentation that's used.
Like the reggaeton is like heavy drums.
Yeah, and then also
and
that
vocals.
like what's that like what is the element that makes it that?
Yeah.
Like, why is punk rock and why is ska?
Yeah.
There's some overlap sometimes, and why is there like a distinction between them? Why is reggaeton this way, and then like you could use those same instruments and make a hip hop track,
right?
But what's the distinction? And I felt like I understood it really quickly, which I'm not good at a lot of stuff, but for whatever reason, when I hear something or a song, like oftentimes you won't see me reacting to a song. Like if you show me a beat or something you made, like I have other buddies, right, that make music, and I'm not like, you can show me and I'm not like really vibing to it, like I'm not showing it, but my brain is like picking apart like what's going on here, what are like, I'm also thinking about how it was mixed, and I'm sure you do this too, where you can hear a song and you're thinking,
like, how does that guitar get so beefy?
yeah, like what, and so that's part of the experience, the music experience, you know, recording and stuff like that. It's you pick up little tools along the way, and I think that's what one of the greatest things about the music experience is, that it's like this journey and you start here, and then you start like picking up things along the way that end up adding up to something more.
Yeah, man, that's crazy though. So then after reggaeton, you went to, what was like the next move after that? Because you did a lot of your own stuff.
So at that time, I was doing the J6 project, and I just, within the J6 project, which was like 3 records that I put out, the first one was more reggaeton, a lot of Spanish for sure. I did some English tracks on that, and then the next record for that project, Monasterio, I did more English and maybe like 1 Spanish track on that one. Right. Just because I found that I made this one project in Spanish because that's how I learned reggaeton. It was in Spanish. So I was like, I'm going to do Spanish. That's how I hear it. But then I was like, and I obviously just mainly speak English. I mean, I speak Spanish also, but with friends and stuff, it's always English. So then I thought, well, I'm doing these shows because I was out there performing and stuff like that. I got some cool experiences like right out the gate with the J6 project, doing some cool shows. And but I was like, everywhere I'm going, like everyone's speaking English, and like I speak English. So then I just did that on the Monasterio project. So then I started mixing in different styles of music.
Yeah, the Monasterio even started going some EDM style, like electro sounding.
Exactly. It's very much that. Like even the cover and all that, like there's some electronic look at it.
Yeah.
Like, so that's the next step. Like I feel like I added was just more of that EDM stuff. I just liked synthesizers. I liked real heavy bass, synth bass guitars. Just real choppy riffs pretty much. And so I got into that. So on that second record, some like EDM stuff, some all of this was pop. Like I'm not, like I'm not I mean in metal and stuff for sure I was like loud and crazy, but I'm not like a loud and crazy dude like in general most of the time, right? So so it was like my version of that, but it was just energy. I just love the energy. So in my normal day-to-day life, I'm like pretty chill, relaxed, or sometimes even really quiet.
Yeah.
But if I'm in music, like I want to be loud and energetic and stuff like that for a lot of the times. I'd say that's a little bit different though with the Just Johnny project, because a lot of the stuff is more like down, like the energy is like some stuff is more like depressing, really. It's not like, if you hear my first earlier stuff, you're like, what happened? Like it's a total change, but I think it's just real. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're being more of yourself, just kind of getting a little in your feelings and expressing yourself.
Yeah, because I think the earlier stuff was more vague, like lyric wise, and that's part of my growing process too. Because like feelings and expressing feelings, it wasn't my forte. Like I didn't go and speak, to people and like share all my thoughts and stuff. I've always kind of been more reserved, bottle up my feelings.
Which I would say you've definitely grown more as a person in that. Yeah. Then you'll tell me something like, I'm like, dang, that was pretty deep what you just said. I'm like, oh, all right.
Yeah. I think that's part of like just.
Which is me too. Like, I mean, I was a kid when you met me. So like definitely I've grown a lot more.
Yeah.
Now a parent and a husband. So it's like, man.
I think that music, I mean, it blends into your life, and so like your music speaks to what you're experiencing at that time. Yeah. Sometimes there's a delay though. Like I've experienced things, but I didn't say those things right when I was like doing music or that style of music. But right now with Just Johnny, I'm really bringing in stuff from this year, last year, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I'm like blending a bunch of like. It's really thoughts and feelings and emotions, and I'm being more straightforward about it. So I'm saying things like lyrically that I wouldn't have said on previous projects because I felt like too vulnerable, too exposed. But now I'm just like really.
But you wanted to almost get it out then too.
I wanted to. So there's a lot of like metaphors, a lot of things that I would encrypt. You know what I mean? Like my lyrics, especially, and that's what I liked about like heavier music is that you would encrypt like your thoughts and feelings. Like you can make it very poetic. And still feel like you're saying it, but you're not saying it.
Yeah.
But there's something cool about that. But with this music that I'm making is just like pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Like on Love You for the Weekend. Let's see if I remember my lyrics, man. I don't even know. So it's wake up, I already want to get away. I just want to lay in bed all day. Got some problems I don't want to face. I just want to see her pretty face. Like super straightforward, right? I'm not encrypting things. Maybe I'm not expounding on it, like speaking, like, but and that's just because of the dance between lyric writing, coming up with a song that's still has movement to it, but not too much. Like I don't want to crowd it with a bunch of lyrics.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be. I
feel
like
definitely less is more when it comes to stuff like that too.
I feel
the
same way. Yeah. Like there's definitely a time for it, and there's some guys who, like for sure, for example, Mission, right? Super dope lyricist. He could say simple things and make them sound great.
Yeah.
But then his storytelling is crazy. Like I've always told him, like, bro, like you gotta
really like that song Dab that he has, where he talks about like dodging a bullet. Like he almost
It's the whole storytelling. Like that type
he's good.
So there's some people that can do that, do it well, and they execute it just like perfectly. I've never felt that was my preference for myself. I like hearing others do it, but I don't like. Actually, we were talking about that, like with ska, right? We were talking about like Sublime and
their ability to tell stories and stuff. Yeah,
and I was like, I appreciate it, and it sounds fun, but I personally don't do that. And that's okay. Like not everybody, like you don't have to do it all. And but in that simplicity and writing just like simple phrases, and having the melody. Because for me, so I learned this from my favorite band, the Deftones, Sacramento-based band. I mean, not anymore. Like they're worldwide and probably live in LA.
Super dope too.
Super. Great energy. So they were one of my earliest, one of my like favorite bands. And what I learned from an interview, which it just clicked when I read it, I was like, yeah. They're more about creating a mood versus like anything else. Like it's just about creating a mood and a vibe. And I'm really big on that. I think because I loved their sound.
Yeah.
And I was like, I connected, that resonated with me, like creating a mood versus being technical. Like I can appreciate someone being super technical on guitar, on any instrument. I'm not that. I for sure play super simple, and I can appreciate like the technicality of things. But for me, it's more about creating a mood and a feeling. Mm-hmm. So that's my approach, really. Like on all these Just Johnny tracks, some of them are like very. And so at this time, like I'm like 12 songs in. I have a bunch of like material. I've only released Love You for the Weekend. About to release 16-bit.
Yeah, so Love You for the Weekend is out right now. You can go stream it on all platforms. Follow the Spotify for sure.
For sure.
But
follow so I could have 2 followers.
Yeah. It won't just be me. Just
kidding. AJ and my mom.
You need to follow.
I should follow myself. Yeah. I'm gonna create a profile, follow myself.
But then 16-bit featuring Mission comes out in the October 28th, you said?
Yeah.
So that's going to be pretty cool.
I definitely feel like I don't really feel like it's featuring Mission. I think it's with Mission.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Because it's like,
no, that's a go. It's like a collaborative track.
It is. I mean, so like and this is one thing that I don't know if people know, but like I make all my music. Like I make the instrumentals, I write the lyrics, I record myself. I engineer the track, all of that, because it's just the way that it's been. It's not like you
missed out a part too. A lot of the artwork you do.
The
yourself.
Artwork, right? I do the artwork. I like.
Yeah.
It's just fun. I like to see the creative process.
Phenomenal, dude. Like I don't know how you go from like just mixing a song and then like I could visually imagine stuff, but you literally execute it so well. Like and then
that's cool, man.
That image, the graphic turned into a video, which is even cooler.
So here's the crazy thing, right? In my mind, when I made 16-bit, those images came to my mind, and I was like, that's what I'm gonna do, and that's what the video is gonna be. Like before, it was just like very.
Are you like me, where you'll like, if you like walk somewhere or something, you can kind of see like, oh, this would be a cool shot for this. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Like the visuals, like, oh, like this would be cool to record a video here or something.
Literally,
like
anywhere, and just. It's just like that. You could pretty much be walking somewhere, driving past some place.
I mean, that's how music also comes a lot of the time too. Like you'll kind of just think of something or see something or feel something.
Yeah. There's sometimes words that will, the word itself feels like it can be unpacked. And, or like, for example, not too long ago, I was down in Newport and I just got an idea for a song and I started making it. So I make a lot of my beats now on my phone because I have like an app where I can record myself. And
did you do 16-bit?
16-bit was on my phone. So 16-bit, I made the instrumental. So I was about to go to sleep and I was like, I think I can make a song real quick. So I just like, literally I was about to lay, I probably did lay. And I was like, oh, let me just sit up. And then I just got my phone and I started
Which
making.
is super convenient just to be able to like put something down real quick.
Yeah.
At least even have like a loop that you could go revisit later or something.
Yeah, or any ideas like that. But what I found recently is that I've been just making like starting one, finishing it, starting. So rather than starting a bunch of tracks and be like, nah, that's a scratch track, that's a scratch.
Yeah.
Like I've just been like, I really feel it and it was real in that moment. So I completed it. But that goes also along with, like, I wasn't planning on making music again for myself. I was like producing stuff. Like I wanted to.
You know what? I think just from being around the group and everything, like we were like also like, dude, you have to like, like you made something and we're like, there's no way you're not doing music for yourself right now because it's so good right now. Like everything you're doing is so good right now.
That's cool, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'd have to say for sure, Mission is the one who like. So anything that I'm putting out, it's really with that confidence backing from Mission.
Yeah, and I was at Missions. You're like, bro, he has to. Like, you hear this? What he just did?
That's cool, man. So there's a few tracks that I've done for Mission that when we first kind of got the studio together, we haven't released those yet. But I wasn't planning on doing anything for myself. But then Mission's like, hey, man, you should just make some music and we'll put it out. And I was like, okay, yeah. And then I just kind of started messing. I don't remember what the first one. I know for sure Love You for the Weekend was the first that I started with this whole Just Johnny project with. And even that.
Very melodic too.
Yeah. Like I love simple melodies. And really with most of the tracks that I'm making, there's something very simplistic about it because I've done, like you've heard my other productions. And during that time, it was like a bunch of layering, a ton of different tracks, a bunch of different things going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I wanted to kind of like pull back on that. Super simple. You probably won't hear many changes, but there's enough changes. Like I still don't want it to be like nothing is happening, but it moves enough for me. And I feel like not everyone's going to like my music. Not everyone's going to like vibe with it. And I understand that. And that's every musician should be. Like, there's some phenomenal musicians. We're talking about like the world-class musicians that are like up there that I think are amazing, but I don't listen to their music because it doesn't resonate with me at that level.
I showed you some like underground hip hop. I'm like, dude, this is like really good. And you're like, yeah, I feel like it's a lot more mature than what I like.
Yeah. Yeah, there's just a certain thing. I think people can it's weird sometimes hearing like people's preferences. I'm like, really? You like that?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not that it's bad, but it's just like, it kind of speaks to your taste just as a person.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I mean, like everybody's so different. And that's what's great about music is that there's so much out there to kind of choose from. But yeah, that's, it's really crazy to think of like how different, like you like that one track. And I was like, yeah, it's cool. But I'm like,
you hear that bass line? It's so groovy and funky.
Yeah. Or you're talking about samples or something too. Yeah. That's crazy. But yeah, I feel like now just simple is my cup of tea.
So I think this is a good time to kind of like wrap up the podcast.
Yeah.
But you want to go ahead and plug anything, like all your social media now on TikTok?
Yeah, you tell me what it is on TikTok. I don't remember.
I just take pictures of him when he's not looking and then post them.
Yeah, so you see me. I make a lot of weird faces, so you might see those in the different social media platforms. So I know I'm on IG. Just Johnny Music is my IG handle.
Yeah.
So and
it's pretty much all your handles except for like the YouTube, right, or the music itself.
Yeah, I don't even remember YouTube, bro.
I think it's just Johnny.
Is it just Johnny? It's
Yeah,
probably,
which is what you would want for like YouTube to be the same as like your streaming platform.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Pretty much everywhere is just Johnny.
Mm-hmm.
Not Johnny alone. It's just JUS. You'll see it anyway. It's on.
And there's
screen.
no H. Some people like to put an H for
No.
some reason.
No H.
Yeah.
JONNIE. Yeah, man. So I'll be releasing a lot. Like I said, I got like 12 tracks right now, but I paused making stuff because I'm like, I got to put this out.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put more out. So I'll be releasing a lot more music going forward. So check
a lot more
that
visuals
out.
too.
Visuals, because it's all kind of tied together.
Yeah, thank God we have a space to do everything now.
Yeah, for real, man.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, it was good. It's good hanging.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. Johnny, go check out his music. Awkward Wave. Sean, you want to say anything?
I love sitting back here and watching you guys just go at it.
Yeah. Well, best podcast producer in the game, Sean Fenner, behind the.
You don't got to do all that.
He's like,
we had to.
He's like, I just want to let you know halfway.
You told us to.
Halfway through.
Through, both cameras shut off.
Yeah, halfway through, one of the cameras went off, and it just.